Hello and welcome to Chabot's News for Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. My name is Eva, and in today's news, we will be covering the updates in the new COVID-19 vaccines in California and the new traveling guidelines. In sports, Ty will be covering the 2021 NBA All-Star Game. And in entertainment news, Ferrari will cover the divorce of Kelly Lee and Andrew Gray. Lastly, in our top 5, Mike will tell us the top 5 countdowns of the worst pandemics in the U.S. history. All that and more coming up on Chabot News. Hundreds of thousands of COVID-19 vaccinations are arriving in California this week. It's part of a new state plan to distribute doses in some of California's most vulnerable neighborhoods. Monday, Governor Gavin Newsom visited a vaccination site in Fresno where he highlighted the effect to increase the number of people protected.
320,000 J&J vaccines are arriving in California this week. We received just 21,000 last week. Northern California, Southern California, at 2 of the federal sites. They went there first. Now with the 320, we'll get them more appropriately distributed on a more equitable basis across the state.
Governor Newsom is expected to address the pandemic Tuesday. He will give us his State of the State address. Glad Tidings International Church of God in Christ in Hayward was offering vaccinations by appointment or in-person walk-up. The pop-up clinic was part of an effort to help vaccinate the African American community in the Bay Area. Church officials say that they are vaccinating around 1,400 people as they want to make the temporary site more permanent. The state of California recently unveiled a vaccination plan that will prioritize low-income communities of color, making leaders of Glad Tidings even more hopeful that their vaccinations won't be the last. If you've been vaccinated, listen up. There are finally some guidelines about what you should and shouldn't do now that you've gotten your shot. You can skip your mask in certain low-income situations, but the CDC still wants you to stay home, at least for now. And as Britt Conway reports, the restrictions is not gonna fly with some critiques.
This is good news. It's science-based, it's sensible. You can hug your grandkids again. If you've been waiting to get a haircut or see the dentist, you can do that.
When you've been fully vaccinated, that is. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention offered new guidance on the matter. But one thing they're not pulling back on, travel, just as the spring break season begins.
Every time that there's a surge in travel, we have a surge in cases.
So the CDC is asking people to avoid non-essential travel. Some medical experts say they get it.
I think the concern is that this would not be considered a low-risk situation because you could encounter a lot of people.
But others aren't on board.
So this is one of these examples where I think the CDC is being far overly cautious in a way that defies common sense. It just doesn't make sense that you can't travel, especially if you now can get together with loved ones.
Airlines for America, an industry group, is pushing back, saying heavily filtered air and masks make it less likely for the virus to spread on planes. And that's likely what travelers want to hear. The TSA says nearly 1.3 million people passed through airport security checkpoints Sunday, the highest level since January 3rd. The new guidance is based on the U.S. vaccination rate and science that's uncertain whether vaccinated people can still spread COVID. But as we learn more,
my guess is we're going to hear looser recommendations around things like travel.
I'm Britt Conway reporting.
Thanks, Britt. An appeals court upheld murder convictions against the Union City gang member who was found guilty in the retaliation killing of a man who was pushing his infant in a stroller in Hayward when he was fatally shot. The First District Appellate Court ruled against Pablo Mendoza, 29, rejecting his attorney's arguments that the prosecutor committed misconduct and that gang evidence should not have been used in his trial. Mendoza and Brandon Fallings, 30, were convicted of murdering 29-year-old Daniel Del Toro in 2017 as a retaliation for Del Toro providing police with information about a nearly decade-old unsolved murder, implementing Dakota gang members. Falling's appeal is still active. Mendoza, sentenced to life without possibility of parole, is incarcerated at High Desert State Prison in Susanville, records show. Stanford University is under scrutiny after denying a prospective student with disabilities access to writing assistance. Antonio Milan has cerebral palsy, a neurological disorder that impacts muscle coordination as he's scribing services to help with schoolwork. But Milan said Stanford is unwilling to provide him access to a scribe. It's honestly depressing because Stanford is an amazing school, and you didn't think that they'd be so negligent to provide a kid who can't write a scribe, said Milan. Milan took the issue to social media. He posted videos that have been widely shared. A Change.org petition gathered more than 30,000 signatures by Saturday night. He got the attention of so many students and staff members, including Stanford law professor Michael Dauber. Now we go to Ferrari for the entertainment news this week.
Thanks, Ever. It's over for Kelly Milley and Andrew Gray. The Bling Empire star announced on Tuesday that they have split after 5 years together. The couple, known for their relationship on the Netflix reality show, posted a selfie of themselves explaining their relationship. Just days after CBS aired Prince Harry and Meghan's interview with Oprah Winfrey, Buckingham Palace released a statement on Her Majesty's behalf. The whole family is saddened to learn the full extent of how challenging the last few years have been for Harry and Meghan. The issue raised, particularly of race, are concerning. While some recollections may vary, they are taken very seriously and will be addressed by the family privately. That's it for this week entertainment news. Now back to you, Ever.
Thanks, Ferrari. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey is putting his first ever tweet up for sale and is expecting to fetch millions. Dorsey is selling the tweet as a non-fungible token, or NFT, which means it is unique, authentic, and verified. The first tweet came out in 2006, and Dorsey wrote, quote, "Just setting up my Twitter," unquote. The NFT comes with Dorsey's signature on the blockchain, a digital ledger used in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. So far, the top bid is $2.5 million from Sena Esteve, the CEO of Bridge Oracle. The auction is currently going underway on a digital platform called Valuables. While 2020 was a year most might like to forget, but according to the new report, it did bring in some good news, which is to come with credit card debt in the U.S. Mandy Gathers explains in today's Consumer Watch.
Every year for the past decade, consumers have added an average of $54.2 billion in credit card debt, according to Wallet Hub. But in a recently released study, the personal finance website says in 2020, Americans got rid of nearly $83 billion in debt, an all-time record.
These numbers were a little bit surprising to see, but this is good news. It means that people during the pandemic were really prioritizing paying down their debt instead of incurring new debt.
But when it comes to 2021, experts don't expect that downward debt trend to continue.
Based on our projections, we're probably looking at Americans to add another $50 billion to their total tab collectively by the end of the year, which is more on track by what we've seen for the last 10 years or so.
Still working to pay off those credit cards, experts say to be aggressive.
Say you have 2 credit cards that you really want to pay down. You want to put the most money on top of whatever it is that has either the highest interest rate, so maybe focus on paying off your most expensive debt first, or maybe the smallest balance, kind of looking at the snowball approach, where you're just paying off whatever you can so that you get one entire bill kind of out of your life.
For Consumer Watch, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Thanks, Mandy. Now we go to Ty for sports news from this week.
Thanks, Eva. The 2021 NBA All-Star Game took place on Sunday, March 7th, putting Team LeBron against Team Durant. This year's All-Star Game was quite the unique one. Anthony Davis had to be replaced weeks before the game due to an Achilles injury. His replacement, Devin Booker, also then had to be replaced as well due to a knee injury. That occurred just days before the event. Then just mere hours before the tip-off, both Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons were removed from the All-Star roster because they had come in contact with someone who tested positive for COVID-19. However, this flurry of roster changes did not take away from the speed of the game. Team LeBron was able to defeat Team Durant 170 to 150. The NBA is not short of stories this week. Detroit Pistons forward Blake Griffin agreed to a deal with the Brooklyn Nets. Blake Griffin is a 6-time NBA All-Star and a former #1 draft pick. After an impressive run with the LA Clippers, Blake Griffin only recently joined the Detroit Pistons in early 2018. Only averaging 12.3 points per game this season, Blake had been rumored to have been searching for a new team. Blake Griffin will join All-Stars Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden in Brooklyn Nets with hopes of making a run for the NBA championship. This comes at a great time for the Brooklyn Nets as they have been in dire need of someone to fill the power forward position. That's it for sports news this week. Now back to you, Eva.
Thanks, Ty. Good news for iPhone users. Netflix is officially launched a new feature called mobile device called Fast Laughs. Fast Laughs will have a list of comedy clips from the platform, which it will include films, sitcoms, and stand-up specials. The content can be found under the Fast Laughs tab. Right now, Fast Laughs is only available on iPhones, but Netflix hopes to make it available for Android users soon. Now, we go to this week's Top 5 segment with Mike.
Thanks, Eva. With so many people getting their COVID-19 shots so readily after healthcare workers, let's remind ourselves that we aren't out of the woods yet. And here I am to give you that large reminder with the top 5 worst pandemics in history. Number 5, the Antonine Plague. It was also known as the Plague of Galen. The Antonine Plague was an ancient pandemic that affected Asia Minor, Egypt, Greece, and Italy, and is thought to have been either smallpox or measles, though the true cause is still unknown. This unknown disease was brought back to Rome by soldiers returning from Mesopotamia around 165 AD. Unknowingly, they had spread a disease which would end up killing over 5 million people and decimating the Roman army. Number 4, the Plague of Justinian. Thought to have killed perhaps half the population of Europe. The Plague of Justinian was an outbreak of the bubonic plague that afflicted the Byzantine Empire and Mediterranean port cities, killing up to 25 million people in its year-long reign of terror. Generally regarded as the first recorded incident of the bubonic plague, the Plague of Justinian left its mark on the world, killing up to a quarter of the population of the Eastern Mediterranean and devastating the city of Constantinople, where at its height it was killing an estimated 5,000 people per day and eventually resulting in the deaths of 40% of the city's population. Number 3, the Black Death. From 1346 to 1353, an outbreak of the plague ravaged Europe, Africa, and Asia, with an estimated death toll between 75 to 200 million people. Thought to have originated in Asia, the plague most likely jumped continents via the fleas living on the rats that so frequently lived aboard merchant ships. Ports, being major urban centers at the time, were perfect breeding ground for the rats and fleas, and thus the insidious bacterium flourished, devastating 3 continents in its wake, and caused large amounts of bubonic plague to spread unchecked. Number 2, the flu pandemic, 1918 to 1920. A deadly outbreak of influenza tore across the globe, infecting over a third of the world's population and ending the lives of 20 to 50 million people. Of the 500 million people infected in the 1918 pandemic, the mortality rate was estimated at 10% to 20%, with up to 25 million deaths in the first 25 weeks alone. What separated the 1918 flu pandemic from other influenza outbreaks was the victims, where the influenza had always previously only killed juveniles and elderly or already weakened patients. It had begun striking down hardy and completely healthy young adults while leaving children and those with weaker immune systems still alive. And number 1, HIV and AIDS pandemic. It was the first identified in Democratic Republic of the Congo in 1976. HIV/AIDS was truly proven itself as a global pandemic, killing more than 36 million people since 1981. Currently, between 31 and 35 million people are living with HIV. The vast majority of those are in sub-Saharan Africa, where 5% of the population is infected, roughly 21 million people. As awareness has grown, new treatments have been developed that have make HIV far more manageable, and many of those infected go on to lead productive lives. Between 2005 and 2012, the global deaths from HIV and AIDS dropped from 2.2 million to 1.6 million. That's it for this week's Top 5, and now back to you, Eva.
Thanks, Mike. Lovers of Starbucks and the Disney Plus show Wanda Vision are in luck. Starbucks created a Frappuccino that has all the makings of the new hit Marvel miniseries, and it looks delicious. It is packed with strawberry puree, mocha drizzle, whipped cream, and chocolate drizzle. This is to showcase the black, brown, and red colors of the TV static that can often be seen throughout the show. This is a limited menu item, so be sure to check it out while you can. That's all for Chabot's News this week. Thanks to all the students and staff in the Mass Communications Department here at Chabot College for making this production possible. You can watch us anytime at youtube.com/ChabotTV. Stay tuned for KCTH Channel 27 for more Chabot TV.